When you're in the younger 15 to 20 range, trying to get a relationship is in many cases pointless because you end up breaking up anyway. Sure, it's good for experience and to understand what it's like to be in one, but it's not usually lasting too long.
I think we all know what hormonal teenagers are like, and I've been one. I've got the YouTube videos to prove it, and I don't think there's really any point in trying to convince a 15-year-old who wants to get his dick wet to not get a girlfriend because he's gonna ignore everything you say.
Other than to just have a bit of fun and just experiment and understand what it's like to be in a relationship, there's really no point in doing the high school relationship type of thing.
Any 15 to 17-year-old who enters a relationship goes in with the mindset that this is going to be my first and last relationship and this is going to last forever. And it's delusional, it's stupid, and I've been in that situation. It's really difficult to try to convince a high schooler to go into a relationship with the intent of learning and experimenting, even though that is the logical thing to say, it doesn't necessarily work.
If you don't know what lifestyle you want to lead, if you don't know what your interests fully are, you probably don't want to bog any of that down with a partner or a girlfriend or any sort of relationship like that for that matter. Any sort of romantic relationship you probably don't want to have to deal with.
A couple of years back, I probably would have agreed with Nico, but the thing is, when you're young, like me and Nico, the thing is you kind of flip flop back and forth between lifestyles. You don't really know what you want, even though you try to convince yourself that you do. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as you can acknowledge it, because the thing is, there's a lot of people of the opposite gender that are in the exact same situation. And I think that's a great point to, bond over.
We now have jobs and have goals and aspirations for ourselves that all come to a halt when we find a partner. They all kind of take a back seat because our now primal goal of continuing the species comes first.
I think this really depends on the person as well. Sometimes you'll just forget everything else in your life, and sometimes you'll be able to just kind of incorporate it into your relationship.
And of course, that eventually fades away with time.
Not necessarily. I think the way that a relationship starts kind of sets the foundation of how you're going to be making decisions further down the line. So if you're making the decision to, neglect all of your friends in order to spend time with your partner, chances are that further down the line in the relationship, you're still going to be in that situation.
And if that fades away in an aggressive way and you end up breaking up with that person, you end up thinking, wow, that was a year of my life. What have I been doing in this year?
A relationship that ends is not necessarily a failed relationship. If you've broken up with somebody and you're sitting there thinking that, wow, I just wasted a bunch of time, then that's not a bad thing either, because you've gone through that experience now. You know how you want to prioritize things in the future. It doesn't matter how many hours of relationship advice you watch on YouTube, because at the end of the day, the only way that you're actually going to learn is by doing. You basically learn by getting your heart broken. You learn by breaking up with somebody. You learn from experience, and no YouTube video is ever going to set you up with the knowledge that you would get from experience.
And then you start to realize that you haven't been really doing much of anything else other than hanging out with your girlfriend. And you try to go back to everything. Your friends are kind of annoyed at you because you haven't hung out with them.
If you're a guy and you're going into a relationship, it's really easy to forget about your friends. And I know because I've been in that situation myself. But really, if you want to have a healthy relationship, you need male friends, and you need to see them regularly.
Your grades might have suffered immensely. Your boss might be pissed off with you chronically to the point where you might have been fired. A lot of things could have happened because of this relationship. So that's why I say don't get a relationship.
A lot of bad things can happen because you get into a relationship at the wrong time, but a lot of bad things could happen anyway. So I say just fuck around and find out, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
A lot of people go into relationships thinking that this is their only source of happiness and that this is the only way that they're going to be happy and find success in their life. And the truth is that is the worst possible way to think about it. You should look for someone and think of them as an extension of happiness of your life, not the sole reason.
This is definitely true, and I'm guilty of doing this as well back when I was a bit younger. But at the same time, like, I'm just imagining, it's a bit goofy. I'm just imagining, like, you're sitting there on a date with a girl. The girl asks you, like, oh yeah, what are you looking for in a relationship? And you're like,
well, I'm looking for an extension to my happiness.
I don't know. It just sounds a bit. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
You can't really know what you love in someone else until you love yourself.
The advice that is given way too often without any context is to love yourself before you can love anybody else. But it's never really explained what it means to love yourself. And I guess the point could be argued that what it means is different for everybody. And a part of loving yourself is figuring out what it means to love yourself, right? But that doesn't really help because those needs and those feelings and all of that is still there. Like the need for company, the need for love, the need for intimacy, the need for sex, everything is still there. Like it's not going anywhere just because you've decided to start loving yourself. So what do you do with those feelings?